Benefits of natural light and views in healthcare, office, and educational facilities. Welcome to Building Knowledge 101. In this video, we focus on the benefits of natural light and the positive impacts of uninterrupted views for healthcare, office, and educational projects. So I've mentioned a couple of times the benefits of daylight. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about that because there's some great studies and excellent documentation that shows the benefits of natural lighting and views in hospitals, commercial buildings, and in educational facilities. So let's take a look at them, or a couple of them. Here's one entitled The Impact of Windows and Daylight Exposure on Overall Health, Sleep Quality of Office Workers. Now, in this study, two separate groups and separate buildings were studied, and to see one group had windowless environment, the other group had an environment with greater amounts of natural daylighting that came in. And as you can see, the results here are the workers with greater exposure to daylight during the week tend to have better physical activity and longer sleep duration. That's very important. They performed overall better performance, overall better health, and were more engaged. This study, Windows in Offices, study of office work performance in an indoor environment, kind of the same thing, looked at two groups of people, one in a building that had minimal windows, a windowless environment, and another group in a building that had greater use of natural lighting. When you look at the results of this, the group that was in the building with more daylight exposure outperformed the others in 6 out of the 8 categories they were looking at. Also, the workers performed 10 to 25% better in mental function. Then lastly, workers with best views were least likely to report negative symptoms or negative feedback of the work environment and negative physical conditions. So definite benefits of natural light coming through. This was an interesting study back in the 80s. Lockheed Martin in California built a new building, and the focus of the new building was to improve and expand on the amount of natural light coming through. And they were able to compare their facility prior to moving into the new building when they were a windowless environment, compare that to the newer building that had greater uses of natural light. They found that the overall operating cost was greatly reduced. They also found that they boosted contract productivity by 15% and absenteeism was reduced by 15%. So they were definitely seeing a huge benefit by changing their building to expand upon daylighting. In this one, benefits of natural lighting, this is looking at healthcare facilities, and they found healthcare and educational facilities. And they found in educational facilities, there was increased student and teacher attendance, reduced absenteeism, reduced turnover, reduced fatigue in buildings with greater uses of natural lighting. Students also were less aggressive, showed more interaction, and were more engaged in the classroom. In this study, they compared 3 different school systems, each of them having built new buildings with expanded use of daylights. And each school system was able to compare their other facilities that had lower daylighting to the newer facilities with increased daylighting. And some of the results they found were quite fascinating. They found that students had a quicker learning, faster comprehension in the buildings with greater use of natural lighting. And it actually expanded the number of school days that they had by increasing the rate of learning that the students had. I mentioned hospitals also. There have been a number of studies looking at healthcare facilities and assisted living facilities where they found that greater use of natural lighting reduced the overall operating cost of the building, improved both physical and psychological states of patients and staff, and increased the healing process, reducing number of days that people spent in the hospital. Hospitals today are focused on having healing rooms or healing gardens where they're really trying to bring more natural light in for the healing factor of daylight, vitamin D that comes from daylight. So hospitals have really determined and seen that they can increase the rate of recovery in patients by exposing them to greater amounts of daylight. Last study I want to looked at the rental rates in Manhattan of Class A office space that was built with expanded use of natural lighting. And they found out that you could get a 5 to 60% premium on office space that had greater use of natural lighting compared to office space that did not. So there's benefits both financial and performance-wise, expanding the amount of daylight and views in hospitals, office buildings, and educational facilities. Another interesting study I'd like to point out was that in 2017, the Nobel Prize for Physiology and Medicine was awarded to 3 researchers who tied together daylight, the pattern of the sun, with our natural body's circadian rhythm. And the natural circadian rhythm of our body regulates your sleep pattern, eating patterns, blood pressure, and body temperature. And that is all tied to daylight and adjusted by the sun. So 24 hours a day with the sunlight being part of that, daylight establishes your body's natural circadian rhythm. For a deeper look at the impacts of daylight on occupants of buildings, I'd focus your attention on this publication, a literature review of the effects of natural light on building occupants. This is released by the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. It does a great job of looking at some of the studies I just mentioned, along with others, and showing you the benefits of natural lighting and views that it has on the occupants of buildings. Then it talks a little of ways to incorporate daylight into buildings. You see some illustrations there on the right, taken from this publication. But it really focuses on the impact of natural light on the occupants of a building. That is all we have time for in this video. If you'd like to watch more of our 101 video series, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Kawneer Company, Inc.